Hi there, Karen Roby here with Tech Republic and ZDNet, talking about the 10 best smartphones you can buy right now, according to Matt Miller. Matt, we're going to bring you in on this. And just in your own words, you said the devices are so good, you don't need to be replacing them every year. So before we get to the actual list, let's just start with your parameters, what you were looking at in terms of determining which smartphone should make the list.
Sure, Karen. It's often easy to always grab the newest, shiniest, brightest thing and throw that at the top of the list. And I try not to be overcome by that and try to give it a week or two of using the device before I make that decision. But being that it's ZDNet, I do try to look at the business appeal of the phones, right? How are people that are out working going to use the phone? And, so battery life comes into play, usability, the latest technology, and whether it's reliable or not. And then the performance, it's something that has to be reliable day to day and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, so lots of things to consider here. And Matt, before we get to the Galaxy and those that made the top of the list, just talk about which phones are good for those that are, price, need to keep price in mind. People that can't exactly go for the priciest, the best, the brightest, the biggest. What made the list that is more price conscious, I guess, if you will?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't mention that is price. I didn't consider price in this particular list. I actually do have another list that talks about price, but there is one phone that is on this list that is available in the U.S. and around the world that is a good price, and that's the OnePlus 6T. Um, this starts at, I believe, 549 or 599, and when you compare that to the latest flagships that are in the 850 to 1000 all the way up to 1250 range, this is a great deal at about half the price. And it did make my top 10. It's just that this is the best deal for your bang for your buck.
All right, good to know there. And when we're talking about Apple, let's just talk about which ones made the list and why.
So the Apple iPhone 10s and 10s Max, I think, were at the top of my list a few months ago. And there's usually Android folks and iPhone folks. So if you're an iPhone user, I mean, the iPhone 10s and 10s Max is absolutely the best choice. I actually have the iPhone 10s, I believe, third right now, and then down lower I have the iPhone 10R, and I kind of separated them. They're very similar phones in functionality and software and everything, but there's a camera difference, there's a screen difference, there's a few minor things that you give up. So I did separate those two, but I mean, if you're an iPhone user, the 10s and 10s Max are the best. And I went through all three this year. So I had an iPhone 10, and then of course the latest and greatest comes out. It's the 10s Max. It's the big beast with all the capability and technology. So I bought that thinking that was the one, but it was just too big for me. And I like big Android phones, but it was just too big on the iOS side without offering a lot of additional capability for the size. So then I tried the 10R, and the 10R is a surprising one that most people will like because it's priced at $750. It's the most affordable iPhone, and it has the longest battery life. So that is a really nice phone. But even then, it was just a little too big for me because I fell in love with the iPhone 10. So I'm back to the iPhone 10s, and it's the size that is the killer part of it for me.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, of course, that is a big thing to consider. I like the bigger ones, of course. I don't know, maybe my just get used to the plus size. But when we're talking about Huawei here, the Mate 20 Pro, you talked about that a little bit. I can't remember exactly which number it fell in, but talk about specifically what you liked about this phone.
Yeah, so I have two Huawei phones on the list: the Mate 20 Pro, and then the P20 Plus. And the P20 Plus is actually going to be replaced here with a successor that's supposed to be announced later this month, I believe. The P30 Pro is the talk and everything, and that one will include a lot of the technology that we see in the Mate 20 Pro. And to be honest, the Mate 20 Pro probably would have been higher on my list. It's just that for U.S. consumers, it's not really an option. You can buy it on Amazon. Around the world, it is a great option. I know a lot of people love it. It has triple cameras, and one of the appeals of that camera is that they swapped out a mono camera they used to have for a wide angle. It's got a massive 4,200 milliampere battery. It's hard to find a phone that will go as long as the Mate 20 Pro. And it has the Kirin 980 processor from Huawei with all of the neural processing network and AI features in it. I mean, it's really an outstanding phone, and it has some gorgeous colors as well, if you're into that. But again, it kind of got knocked down a little bit on my list because it's just not readily available, and it is fairly expensive as well.
Right. Okay. And in terms of Pixel 3, how did Google fare here in your list?
So there's just like there's iOS fans and Android fans, there's actually Pixel fans, and they get pretty heated when I don't put the Pixel up at the top of my list every time. And the Pixel arguably has the best camera today, and which is interesting because it has a single camera, whereas most of the other phones have two or three cameras on it. But the Pixel is the phone to get if you want the latest and greatest software all the time. But for business, that isn't necessarily always beneficial because sometimes that software comes out, as we see from Apple and from Google. It's released right away, but then there's some little problems. So then they issue an update, and business people always don't want to be dealing with those kind of updates. However, the Pixel is a fantastic phone. It's a bit expensive. If you're really a Pixel fan, I recommend you actually look at last year's Pixel because all the software is still the latest and greatest software, and the hardware is just about the same. But you can save yourself a couple $100 going with a Pixel 2 or Pixel 2 XL versus a Pixel 3 or Pixel 3 XL.
Interesting. All right. And yes, you're right. Pixel fans do not like to be left out of the conversation. All right. So let's switch now to Samsung, to the S10. Of course, this was made the #1 spot for you. Talk about the things that you liked about it, maybe some of the things that were not so great about it, and then the Galaxy Note 9 as well.
Yeah, so it's hard, to make these kind of lists and be impartial. And there's things that I personally like about it that others don't like. And like I always caveat my list with is, any of these phones in this top 10 can be #1 for somebody or other. But it's hard to argue that the Galaxy S10 and S10 Plus don't have everything but the kitchen sink inside. I mean, Samsung did not compromise. There's still a headphone jack on board. There's fast wireless charging. There's dual stereo speakers. There's triple cameras on the back with a wide angle. They have new technology in there as well, where they have the wireless power share. So you're actually able to put another device, or particularly the Galaxy Buds, on the back and charge that up on the go. It has a 4,100 milliampere battery, so it's the longest lasting Android phone that I've tested in quite some time. And of course, Samsung with their AMOLEDs, they have the best displays that you can find on any mobile phone at all. It's just there's nothing really that it compromises on. It's nearly perfect. A couple little things that do bother me is I do occasionally have accidental screen touches, the way your fingers fit on it and the way that they've designed the edge. And it does have one new technology, and that's the in-screen fingerprint scanner, where you actually put your thumb or finger on the bottom of the display itself to unlock it. That can be a little bit problematic here and there. But Samsung last year had the iris scanner, which people complained about a lot more. And there was an update recently where that fingerprint scanner is getting better. The big problem for me, I'm personally a Note fan because I love the S Pen and what it can do. And I think that, the latest S Pen with Bluetooth in it offers a lot for the enterprise user. And it was really hard to knock the Note 9 from the top of my list. But Samsung's new tech in the S10 and the fact that it's a little bit smaller and easier to hold and everything else makes it a bit more appealing. And I know that the Note 10 is coming around, next 3-4 months, and it's going to have all the latest tech in the S10 packed into the Note series.
All right, and before we let you go here, Matt, was there anything that surprised you when you really were digging in here and doing your research for this piece? Any device that surprised you, or anything that that really stood out to you?
Actually, they're all so good. It's just really, really hard to make a decision. Um, I tried not to put the camera performance necessarily as the top one, but everybody nowadays, you rarely see people carrying around a separate camera. It's their phone as the camera, but you really can't go wrong with with any of these devices. Even the affordable OnePlus 6T has a fantastic camera as well.
Well, it's definitely good to have choice, for consumers, for things, for businesses to consider as well, Matt. And that's certainly why your list is of great help for people that are looking to invest in their next smartphone. So we appreciate your insight here for us. For the full article and list from Matt, you can find it on ZDNet.